something like 40, 50 or 60 tanks were all on the same frequency. So those that were not involved in the attack, as A Squadron were, had to keep quiet. And we heard a lot of the things that were happening.
At about 6 o'clock in the evening, we were still at it. The infantry by now were very, very tired and had suffered tremendous casualties. We'd had one or two, and the orders across the radio were that we must try and find a way to get to the top of the mountain. At one stage, I found what looked like a track which led up the side of the mountain, and reported this over the radio.
At RHQ, there was a lot of frustration because nothing seemed to be happening, because the infantry still couldn't get forward. This went on for a very long time. And it wasn't until late in the day that anything really started to move. And then it seems sort of, I mean, having spent the day wondering what was going to happen, very suddenly it appeared that a route, Denny's party of 2 troops had found a way to the top. There was then a further frustration because Derek Wormald, squadron leader, was immobilized because his tank went over a mine and he couldn't move. And so they were a pretty lightly equipped party that was finding their way up the mountain, and they had their casualties too. And Vincent then saw that this was the one chance of getting to the top, and he was trying to get permission or trying to get the higher command to make up their minds. And there was some, I don't know why, there was some great difficulty, it seemed to me, in reaching any decision. So Vincent said, well, to hell with that, I'm going myself, which was a very brave and a very splendid decision.
At this time, getting towards the evening, when Colonel Vincent Dunkley gave the orders for Noel Denny, who was then second in command of A Squadron, to take my troop and David Jennison's troop to try and reach the top of Mount Parcel.
I swung my tank round and was just about to head up this path when all of a sudden, from my left, another Sherman appeared and came racing across my bows with a friend of mine, a chap called Corporal Hammond, leaning out of the turret, roaring with laughter and waving at me. And away he went up the track, and I had to follow him. We both started racing up this track as if it was something of a game. And I was furious with Hammond at this for going in front of this piratical act of his. But away we went, crashing up the top. It was a harsh, hard run on a narrow track, and there was a bank on the right as far as I remember and a steep drop on the left, and it was a narrow path. We went crashing up that with little or no opposition to us at this time.
We were trying to relate the progress of this patrol back to Mole and to Brigade and to all the other people who seemed to be extremely concerned and interested in what was going on.
Sergeant Rattle's tank, he was the troop sergeant, slithered into a quarry. It very nearly overturned, but it didn't. But nevertheless, we kept going. We couldn't stop to rescue him at that stage of the game because our orders were to get to the top as fast as possible. So he had to fall out of the procession.
But the other 7 managed to reach 3/4 of the way up Mount Parcel, where we went into a holding position. We managed to do this by putting down a smoke screen that was highly successful and managed to cover up our rush to the top, which I think enabled us to have no casualties at all.
Suddenly, I heard this voice coming up on the radio, on the wireless, and it was Noel Denny. And he said, in a very loud voice, "It's a lovely summer evening. There don't seem to be any other people up here, but I feel very lonely."
By now a mist had come down, and so we couldn't see very far, although we could hear German voices shouting. Having got to the top of the mountain, we were told to stay put. In fact, there was nowhere else we could go, so we did. And we had to wait there for a matter of some hours, I suppose. And it was very lonely and a bit eerie, in that we couldn't see very far. And when we heard the Germans, we put a shot across in the direction that they were, where we could hear their sounds. And that really is how we spent the next couple of hours waiting for the infantry to arrive.
Once the infantry had arrived, and possibly about 20 minutes later than that, 2 more tanks came up and joined us, followed by the rest of A Squadron, which were also deployed across the feature of Mount Pinson in conjunction with the infantry. And Vincent Dunkley literally came up within 50 yards of where we were.